Won't want to
Everyone,
lose
it's
that
your
like
host, your
that
friend, your
many.
boy, Jet Black, the one and only, here with.
Well, I'm not doing it again, so.
Okay, I accidentally had my mic muted when we did the first.
Did you like lose that early recording or something?
So what I did is I
What do you
stopped
do?
the last recording and then I started a new recording because of the
Why?
fact that I was muted at the beginning. So what Ryan and I had started talking about. By the way, this is episode 12 of the
No, this is what Jet was talking
podcast.
about. I wasn't talking about that.
Ryan's like, I wasn't talking about anything. Ryan's playing Breath of the Wild. Real quick, let me do the intro thing. So this is the Two Guys Talking podcast. This is episode 12. It's a podcast where Ryan and I just kind of talk on the phone about whatever. There's no real set structure to anything. We just kind
It
of
says Jet.
talk on the phone. Okay, so Ryan's like says Jet. What is the like set structure then? If
I didn't say there was one.
did you say that you didn't say there was one?
True.
True. Okay. Well, you were like says Jet when I said we don't have
Yes,
structure.
Jet.
That's true. I did indeed say that. Let's see. So I started talking to Ryan about the Transformers Back to the Future crossover. And I proposed the idea of what if the DeLorean became a Decepticon and Marty McFly, Doc Brown, and the Transformers, well, I guess the Autobots, had to team up to stop like this time traveling Decepticon DeLorean. And Ryan said that the premise sounded like somewhat interesting, but that he thought that the actual story likely won't be as interesting. So then I tried to pitch what would be like a lame version of that. Like, what if the Back to the Future Transformers crossover was kind of mediocre? And I feel like the best way to make it mediocre would be for like nothing really to happen. Like, you could technically do a Back to the Future Transformers crossover where the story takes place in the same setting, but neither of the characters directly interact with each other. Like, the Back to the Future portion could be like Marty McFly and Doc Brown are just hanging out and they're not doing anything. There's no time travel. They're just like talking. And then the Transformers people are just like going around the city and they're patrolling for Decepticons, but there aren't any Decepticons to fight. And then the characters like never actually meet or interact with each other. It's just like, but they were in the same setting, so I guess it's a crossover. Like, I think that would be pretty lame. Do you think it's going to be that lame, Ryan? Or do you think it'll be a little more interesting than that?
Yeah, I'm gonna have minimum expectations and think it's gonna be as lame as possible.
Okay. Do you think my description was the lamest possible thing? Or do you think it could be even lamer than that?
It can be even lamer than that.
Okay, what do you think is like the lamest
They could almost have a crossover, and that they're constantly like around the other corner, but don't actually run into each other,
I could see that.
and then nothing happens.
Fair.
But still technically crossover because they're like in the same like street or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely would be pretty lame. I agree with that. Let us know in the comment section below. What would be the lamest Back to the Future Transformers crossover, and what would be the coolest Back to the Future Transformers crossover? Boo. Speaking of Transformers crossovers, Ryan brought to my attention that recently there was a Transformers My Little Pony crossover. So if Transformers can cross over with My Little Pony,
Well, I mean, My Little Pony's already a Hasbro property, so.
that's true. Well, hold on, Ryan.
They had the same convention for both of them a while ago.
Yeah,
Hasbro Con.
that doesn't mean that they're
They've already had a shared convention, Jet.
a shared convention.
The
is
crossover
a shared
isn't even
multiverse.
all that surprising when you think about it that way.
Well, they're owned by the same company, but that doesn't mean that they'll cross over.
But they did.
They did. That's true. I guess what I'm saying is, with the My Little Pony Transformers crossover, does that mean that we could potentially see a My Little Pony Back to the Future crossover? Because they're established kind of in the same multiverse.
Are they? Is that how that works?
If the Transformers are in the Back to the Future multiverse and they're in the My Little Pony
I think multiverse like that means something, Chet.
It means the
Multiverse my
capability of
ass.
crossing over. It means your ass. Is your ass the crossover point? They have to pass between the cheeks to get between universes.
Oh no.
Let's
My ass.
see. Transformers crossover. Oh, also, did you know that in the Joker's first appearance in the comics, he like stabs himself, and Batman thinks he's dead and just leaves the Joker like dead in the street?
Sounds like a thing Batman would do.
I guess. But then the police show up, and then the Joker like, I'm actually not dead. Da-da. I've heard that apparently the Joker in his first few appearances consistently quote unquote dies, but then doesn't actually die. And I saw,
What he wants you to think. It's his mind games.
right. Someone did a video that was like a theory kind of thing where they were like, what if the Joker actually died every time he like fake died? And the reason why we have so many different Jokers is because it's like the same Joker, but every time he comes back, he's like crazier, and that's why he's got
Or
more extreme.
every time he dies, he like multiplies like a Hydra. So that's why there's like 3 of them now.
So in the Three Joker story, they've explained that like the chemicals at Ace Chemicals just turn you into the Joker. It's not a thing where it's like, oh,
But then what about Harley Quinn?
well, she's a girl, so maybe it always turns you
She's a
Harley
girl.
Quinn.
So like if it's a dude, it's you turn into the Joker. But if it's like a lady that you throw in, what, like turn into Harley Quinn or something? Like is that how this is supposed to work?
That's what it seems like they're suggesting, but I've seen stories in the past that have implied Joker has a lot of fake Harleys. Like he's pushed other people into the vat and they've just like died. So I don't know how consistent that is. Maybe it's harder to make a Harley than it is to make a Joker. I don't know. Like the rules are weird.
I don't know. I mean, maybe Harley Quinn, like the original person, is just like really resilient. Like in the Batman Beyond movie, she like survived falling to death or something. So you know.
I'm falling to death. Like how
Yeah, like back in the day when they did that, like where like stealing Robin, like she was fighting Batgirl, and then they're like the whole like place was like falling apart, and then like they were like holding on at the cliff thing, and like Harley Quinn, but she's like still alive in the Batman Beyond time period, but she's like hella old.
hmm
So she survived that. So maybe she's just like a really hardy person in that she can take a lot of damage.
I mean, Harley Quinn in some iterations has like powers, but that's due to like Poison Ivy messing with her. Um, Let me look that up real quick. Poison Ivy gave Harley Quinn powers. I'm gonna type that into Google. Google. Let's see. So there's a screenshot thing here. Does this show where it happens? I worked for a moment, all the parts of my mind were pulling together. Perhaps I had a subtle side effect. Excuse me for a second, give it to me straight, doc. Something, something, something. Hey, are you actually a doctor? Okay, I don't know what this is. I'm trying to see if I can find when Harley Quinn was given powers by Poison Ivy. Because I'm pretty sure that's something that happened, but now I'm trying to, like, okay. Harley has no real superpowers, but was injected with a special toxin antidote by Poison Ivy, which resulted in her becoming immune to various forms of chemicals.
Yeah, it sounds like the Orochimaru thing, where it's just like Sasuke's like, yeah, I'm also immune to a bunch of poisons.
But the injection also gave Harley enhanced strength and durability. So it did give her super strength and stuff. So depending on the version of Harley, she either like has powers from like the poison ivy injection thing, or she just doesn't have powers. Well, I've also seen her have powers on Apocalypse, because she once went to Apocalypse and got this awesome fucking power armor. And I think the power armor gave her a variety of abilities. Because I don't read a lot of Harley Quinn stuff, but I did read that because I love power armor. But I can't. Oh wait, what? Ryan, she gets the power armor in the cartoon?
Yeah, she gets in the. Jeff, have you tried watching the cartoon?
I watched
Like,
season 1.
Watch the cart. It's a pretty good show, you know. Like they have a whole bunch of stuff like that. It just happened, you know. Like things happen pretty good. Would recommend you should watch.
I liked season 1. I didn't.
So watch season 2.
Okay, I
It
guess.
has powers, armors, and such. You know.
Cool. I can't remember what all her abilities were with the armor. What were her abilities with the armor in the animated version?
I don't know. She only had it for like an episode or something. So.
That's similar to the comics. She only had it for maybe like a couple issues at most. Let's see. I can't remember what the powers were. Maybe I could just Google Hammer Harleen powers. Excuse me. So the fandom wikia has a powers list, but I don't really trust fandom wikias most of the time. I'll let it slide this time. So, it does not list a lot. It says superhuman strength, durability, and flight. Is that really all the Apocalypse Hammer gave her? I feel like it let her do more than that. Also, this fucking fandom wikia article for Harley Quinn is not that good. Let's see if the DC Universe Encyclopedia will say more about like Hammer Harleen. Though it may not be like a substantial enough thing to have happened in her history for it to appear in the encyclopedia. We will see. I'm not the biggest Harley Quinn guy. Powers and abilities. Blah, blah, blah. We already read the thing about the toxin. In addition, Harley is proficient in multiple weapons, often wielding a giant mallet. She sometimes has 2 pet hyenas as both companions and attack dogs. Prior to her interaction with any toxins or chemicals, Harley was a peak athlete and a highly trained gymnast with a genius IQ. And her assets occasionally are hindered by her mental instability. So I knew that she was like a psychologist, and Batman has commented that she like knows more about brains than like most people. I didn't know that she was a highly trained gymnast.
Yeah, that was like as a kid, like teenager.
Okay. So it's interesting that she decided to go into psychology, I guess. She just had different passions.
Yeah, sure. Passions.
Okay, why did she become like a psychologist?
Why don't you watch the TV show?
Sure, I will. Well, how about I just look at this encyclopedia entry or whatever? Harley Quinn. The multiverse would be a much less lively place without the hijinks and shenanigans of the former Dr. Harleen Quinzel, the one and only clown princess of crime. Sometimes love can make people do crazy things. Other times it drives them completely insane. Such is the case with Harley Quinn, formerly Dr. Harleen Quinzel, a promising psychologist and intern at Arkham Asylum in Gotham City. Harleen was given the chance to get up close and personal with the Joker, an experience that wound up ending badly. Harleen became obsessed with her subject, and after falling madly in love with the Clown Prince of Crime, she helped him escape the asylum. Her love for the Joker inspired Harleen to adopt a new identity, that of Harley Quinn, the Joker's sidekick slash love interest, whether he wanted one or not. Most of the time, he did not. In time, Harley came to realize the Joker was holding her back, and she struck out on her own. She became an entrepreneur and a member of several slightly less than reputable super teams, including the Suicide Squad, Gotham City's all-girl gang, the Gotham City Sirens, and a traveling sideshow. Along the way, Harley has become one of the most popular supervillains in the DC universe, thanks in part to her versatility, charisma, and cheery but deranged outlook on life. After all, as Harley would say, if you're going to go a little crazy, you may as well sit back and enjoy the ride. Her first appearance was in the Batman Adventures number 12 comic from 1993. They specifically say her first appearance in comics, which makes sense. That's what I would have assumed anyways. And then it says her alias is Dr. Harleen Quinzel. Yeah, it's interesting that they list your secret identity as your alias instead of just as your real name. Different characters are treated differently in the encyclopedia. So sometimes you'll be listed under your real name and then your alias is your superhero name. But I guess since she doesn't go by her real name most of the time, it makes sense that it's swapped. I don't know. That's interesting. So her origin. Like almost everything about her, Harley Quinn's origin story is constantly changing and evolving. The first time it was told, she was revealed as a brilliant psychologist employed by Arkham Asylum. Dr. Harleen Quinzel, by all accounts, was on the path to a bright and promising future, but her interest in criminal psychology had insidious roots. While she was studying, her professor, Dr. Odin Marcus, manipulated Harleen into believing chaos is the only true constant in the world. Marcus went so far as to orchestrate a scheme in which Harleen was made to puppeteer her own boyfriend, a man named Guy Kopsky, into committing murder on her behalf. What? Is this covered in the show?
No.
No? Yeah, I've never heard this. This is really weird. Pleased with the results of his experimentation, Dr. Marcus helped Harleen upon her graduation to get an internship at Arkham Asylum, which would allow her access to the Joker, with whom she had become obsessed due to his relationship to the chaos she believed existed at the heart of all things. After meeting the Joker in person and gaining unrestricted access to him, Harleen...
Unrestricted submarine warfare is what that made me think of.
Okay, good to know. Harleen fell in love with the homicidal clown, despite the mental and physical abuse he showed her. She tried several times to help him escape before she was caught and made an inmate herself. She then developed the identity of Harley Quinn. Following her own escape, she installed herself as the Joker's on-again, off-again sidekick. So this origin is really weird, because it has it where Harley Quinn is essentially continually manipulated by, like, men, essentially. Like, it feels like she has a lot less agency in this origin, because first you have the doctor who's like, you should get people to murder people for you. And then the doctor also is the person who puts her at Arkham Asylum as the intern. Like, she doesn't even get to pick the internship thing. And then the Joker kind of manipulates and, like, beats her and stuff and gets her to do things. I don't really like the lack of agency in her origin, where she's just constantly getting strung around. So I'm glad that they change it, but I'm curious what they change it to. What are your thoughts on this, like, original Harley Quinn origin or whatever? Quality feedback, commentary. This is what people come here for. So in another version of Harley's story, she retained her criminal psychology roots, but her manipulation by her teachers was... That's also what they come here for. Instead, she went undercover as an inmate at Arkham in an attempt to gain access to the Joker, rather than winning an internship. The Joker was able to see through her ruse, and he launched a concentrated effort to manipulate her. He managed to convince Harleen to share personal stories and tricked her into believing he'd brought people who'd hurt her to justice, even from inside his cell, promising that he could make her see the world as he did. So this one's weird because they're like, well, in this one, she has more agency because she's not being manipulated by Dr. Marcus. But in this one, she's also becoming an undercover inmate in order to get closer to the Joker. Why
Hmm.
would you do that? What would be your motivation for doing? Like, if she's already a criminal psychologist in this version, it makes more sense for her to either do the internship like last time, but this time just not be manipulated into it, or like ask to interview the Joker because you are a professional criminal psychologist and you could probably just do that. I don't even know how you go undercover as an inmate. Does that mean that she went to Arkham Asylum and she was like, I'm crazy, lock me up, please? And they were like, sure, aren't you a famous criminal psychologist? And then she's
Maybe she's in disguise, Jet. In
like,
disguise.
do you not fill out any paperwork? Do they not do a background check on you when you go to an asylum?
Yeah, but this is Arkham Asylum, Jet. This is Arkham Asylum.
I guess they have low standard. You'd think they'd have the highest standards because they have to make sure that everything's on the up and up or Joker escapes for like the 50th time. But maybe the criminal escape record shows that clearly they're not on the up and up. I don't know.
I mean, unless you have some kind of like Hugo Strange running it, letting people out.
True. That's a big thing in the Batman cartoon. And Hugo Strange is very good about playing coy about stuff in that show. So he'll straight up do evil stuff where, like you said, he'll let people out and he'll be like, oh, I thought they had been successfully rehabilitated. They'd fooled me. But I won't make that mistake again for another few episodes. Stuff like that. Jumping back into the origin section, the one sided love affair was cut short, however, when a supervisor at the asylum discovered Harleen's obsession and attempted to remove her access to the Joker. In a rage, she attempted to kill the supervisor before assisting in the Joker's escape. The Joker's first order of business as a newly freed man was to take Harleen to Ace Chemicals, the site of his own origin, and push her into a vat, completing her transformation into the Harley we know today. I mean, how does he know when he pushes her into the vat that it won't just kill her? Like, now that we know that the Joker,
Does he care?
does he care? That's fair. Um, Now that we know that the Joker makes other Jokers by pushing them into vats of Ace chemicals, do you think that was his intention when he pushed Harley Quinn in to transform her? Or do you think maybe she's the person who had him discover that? Like learn that, oh, I can make more of me by pushing people in the vat. Like it has like a similar effect.
I mean, you had to start somewhere.
True. I guess we just don't know if he started with Harley or if he started with like another Joker. But that'd be an interesting story for them to tell at some point. Let's see, we already read powers and abilities, so now essential storylines. So Mad Love from 1994. Harley's origin story was actually first told outside of the main DC universe. It's interesting that the encyclopedia says main DC universe. I imagine they're referring to Earth Zero, even though Jim Lee is like, the main one is your favorite. Just whatever your favorite
Yeah, but
is.
Jim Lee isn't making any sense when he says that, so we can just choose to ignore it.
Fair. Let's see. In the Batman Adventures Mad Love 1994, taking place within the same continuity as Batman the Animated Series, where Harley Quinn initially debuted in the 1992 episode Joker's
Do you think debuted?
debuted. The story established
Debuted.
the story established Harley's origin as an Arkham Asylum psychiatrist meeting the Joker for the first time, falling in love with him, and eventually succumbing to her own insanity to become his sidekick and girlfriend. So, I think it's interesting that her origin in the animated series, I think, is honestly better than the comic origins. Both comic origins seem like they kind of.
Well, they can't just keep it the same, otherwise they're plagiarizing.
How do you plagiarize yourself? It sounds more like
But you're not yourself. You're
plagiarizing
a comic book
themselves.
writer.
They're
You
just
can't
playing
plagiarize.
themselves. But they own the rights to the stories. You can't. Who's gonna sue you?
You don't have to get sued to be in trouble for plagiarizing, Chad.
It's not like a plagiarization as much as it is just an adaptation of the origin. They adapted Mr. Freeze's origin straight from the animated series.
Yeah, but then they plagiarized, so now they're in trouble.
With who? That's what I'm saying. Like, who are you in trouble?
They're in trouble with the plagiarism police.
Well, if they already did it with Mr. Freeze, they should have just done the shit again, I would say.
No,
Double
that's
jeopardy.
double
You can't get
jeopardy.
charged.
You can't get twice.
Yeah. No Man's Land, 1999 to 2000. Harley's first official appearance in main continuity of the DCU. They need to stop saying that. They need to change every instance of main continuity. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Of the DCU happened.
Well, maybe they'll change it back before the time that they'll get around to updating the wiki, so it won't matter.
Maybe. I mean, how do you go back on that? Does Jim Lee do a video where he goes, fuck what I said before. Main continuity is Earth Zero. All that other shit's fake. It's not in the multiverse. Goodbye.
Yeah, that's how you do that.
I feel like that'd be like a really weird change up. Very unnecessary.
Why'd they change it in the first place?
They changed it in the first place so that everyone could be happy.
Everyone was already happy.
Everyone.
And if they were happy, how does this make them happier?
Because now, if you only care about like the action figures, which some
You can already care about the action figures.
But now the action figure stuff could appear in like a comic. Like
it already
Arctic
could.
Force Batman could now be like his own universe or whatever.
It already could do that.
Yeah, but now you know it is. It's somewhere.
It already kind of it's
until you say it is. You don't know for sure. Now we know for sure that the Batman Beyond action figure universe, where he goes into like cyberspace, that happened somewhere. Got this canon out here, Ryan. Anyways, in Batman, Harley Quinn. Oh wait, what'd you say?
So canon is meaningless.
Jim Lee would be like, no, the canon you care about matters, Ryan. It exists somewhere.
I'm like, so it's meaningless.
So you say. In Batman Harley Quinn #1, 1999, as a part of the year-long No Man's Land crossover event, following the events of 1998's Cataclysm, Gotham City had collapsed into an earthquake-ravaged wasteland run by warring factions, including the Batman family, the GCPD, and the gangs of various criminals and supervillains. Batman Harley Quinn #1 adapted Harley's mad love origin story, explaining that she was able to break out of Arkham, where she had been an inmate since her own psychotic break as the Joker's psychologist, thanks to the chaos caused by the Cataclysm earthquake. Hold up.
I think for the Chaos Emeralds. Yeah.
So, in what they just said was the first time she appeared in main continuity, they just adapted Mad Love. So that means all the Dr. Marcus stuff and all of that just comes up later. They just changed it for some reason.
Yeah, it's called a retcon.
We'll see. I don't know. Maybe there's some event that happens, like Infinite Crisis or something, and then they're like, after that, Dr. Marcus shows up. It's all this bullshit. I don't know.
Or maybe they just retcon it and it's bullshit anyway.
A lot of times they don't do like heavy retcon. There's always some thing.
Yeah, but they do. They just make it complicated and the lore reasons, but they do it anyway.
Lore reasons aren't.
Lore reasons.
Let's see. In this version of the story, the Joker launched Harley on a rocket in an attempt at murdering her before confronting the reality of their relationship. The rocket, however, only managed to launch Harley into Robinson Park, an area of the No Man's Land that Poison Ivy had taken over. Ivy found Harley and injected her with a toxin that rendered her immune to Ivy's pheromones and other venoms, as well as granting her enhanced strength and durability, enough to allow her to hold her own in hand-to-hand combat against Batman himself. Hold up. So they're saying in Harley Quinn's first appearance in comics, she was given superpowers. Well, not her first appearance in comics. Her first appearance in quote unquote DC's main continuity, aka Earth Zero. I had no idea that was the case. That's kind of crazy. So does New 52 Harley have powers if it's such a big part of her like continuity existence? I guess I'll have to see. From this point, Harley became a fixture of Gotham City, both as a sidekick to the Joker and an independent supervillain in her own right. So she already was kind of doing her own shit from her start in main continuity. Okay, next up, from Secret Six to Countdown 2007 to 2009. Following a brief stint in Arkham Asylum and willing to try anything once, Harley appeared to fill an opening in the Secret Six in Birds of Prey number 105. She quit after the first mission. Eager to put her life with the Joker behind her, Harley left Gotham in Countdown and set up shop at a women's shelter run by Amazons in Metropolis, where she made friends with fellow Gotham expat Holly Robinson. The shelter took Harley to Themyscira, where both she and Holly were made to train as Amazonian warriors. Unfortunately, it was revealed that the Amazon they'd believed to be Queen Hippolyta was actually a disguised Granny Goodness, who used the shelter as a front to train a new army of female Furies for Apocalypse. Harley was then forced to... That does indeed sound like something she would do. Harley was then forced to fight through the fires of Apocalypse before returning to Gotham City. So, I didn't know that Harley Quinn had any history with like Granny Goodness or Apocalypse before her story in Rebirth. So it's interesting that there was kind of like pre-Flashpoint precedence for like Harley Quinn to have some connection to Granny Goodness. It's crazy that Granny Goodness can disguise herself as Hippolyta and take people to Themyscira and not get called out on it. Where was the real Hippolyta during that?
On vacation.
Somewhere else. So that she couldn't... Maybe, like, if Granny Goodness kidnapped her, that'd be an interesting...
Are we sure it was the real, like, Themyscira? Yeah, it could have just been, like, a illusion.
That's true. You were on Apocalypse the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, you would think that if Granny Goodness had set up a front in Metropolis where she had a woman's shelter run by Amazons, that Wonder Woman would know about it, and that Wonder Woman would have been like...
Or Wonder Woman was on vacation with Hippolyta and thought missed out on it.
Maybe, right? Maybe. Always moving.
Someone should have been in a... They were on vacation.
Ryan...
It was the summer thing. Like the cyborg summer.
Oh, the DC cyber...
Everyone's just on vacation, don't you know?
Maybe. Gotham City Sirens, 2009 to 2011. Following her return to Gotham, Harley formed a team with Poison Ivy and Catwoman called the Gotham City Sirens. Though not completely a force for good, the Sirens largely spent their time working to keep Gotham safer, even if it meant focusing on personal vendettas and crossing lines Batman and his friends never would. Things began to fall apart, however, when Harley broke into Arkham with the goal of killing the Joker once and for all. Instead, when she reached his cell, he convinced her to rejoin him and betray Ivy and Selina, fracturing the Sirens' bonds and setting off a cascade of backstabbing among the three women. Interesting. I did not know that's how the Gotham City Siren stuff ended. I thought it was just ended abruptly by the New 52, but apparently they all became enemies right before the New 52 changeover. Speaking of the New 52, the New 52, 2011 to 2016. Following Flashpoint, they put in all caps, 2011, Harley was given a new origin story, that involved the Joker forcibly pushing her into a vat of acid not a vat of acid, into a vat at Ace Chemicals in order to transform her physically the way he had been transformed. Okay, well that just straight up says in the New 52 that like his goal was to try and Jokerify her or whatever, which we still don't know if she's the first. We still don't know if that's like where he came up with the idea or if he already knew that would work or what. Anyways, the traumatic event splintered their relationship and left Harley dangerously unstable and less anchored in Gotham than she'd been in the past. Wait a minute. Let's pump the brakes before I read any more of the New 52 thing. Is this her first origin where she gets pushed in the vat? Because we just read through her like other storylines or whatever.
Like in the cartoon things, I don't think she's actually pushed into that. She's always just like wearing makeup and stuff, which kind of like it's not like a vat thing.
Weird. So the vat thing is like within the last decade, like a very
Yeah,
new
it's like
element of her.
later Harley Quinn stuff.
Fascinating. Let's see. In Suicide Squad number 1, 2011, Quinn was drafted into the Suicide Squad by Amanda Waller after being captured by Black Canary. She reluctantly served with the team, though her obsession with the Joker kept her preoccupied. Eventually, upon learning the Joker had been killed, in truth he'd merely gone into hiding, Harley's mental state crumbled. She wasted no time in betraying the squad by Suicide Squad number 5 in 2012, and escaped to Gotham to try and find evidence of the Joker's demise. Later, when the Joker was revealed to be alive in Death of the Family, it's funny that he was revealed to be alive in Death of the Family, but anyways, Harley realized that she was no longer in love with him and opted to remove herself from his life completely. So she already was removed from the Joker. Then she was like, he's dead? No, Then it's like, oh wait, he's alive? Now I'm definitely removed. Fuck it, he's alive. Living? Nah, I don't care about it. So weird roller coaster going on there. Let's see. Going solo, sort of. Harley Quinn, Harley's Little Black Book, Harley Quinn and Her Gang of Harleys, 2013 to 2016. So she had 3 different comics within the span of 3 years? Did they just give her a new book? Like literally just every year between 2013 and 2016?
Sounds like a thing they would do.
I suppose so. Following her Joker epiphany, Harley left Gotham and moved to New York's Coney Island with the goal of starting a new life away from the baggage of her past. In her first ever solo ongoing series, Harley evolved yet again, gaining a brighter, more positive personality and the uncanny ability to break the fourth wall. Oh, that's weird too. So there's like a line where you can go, 2013 is when she started breaking the fourth wall. But any time before that, she just kind of didn't. And they're not like there's a reason. Like there's like a thing that happened. It's just now she just can. I guess. Fuck it. So cool. In this incarnation, Harley was a true anti-hero, focused on doing her part to better her neighborhood, even if her methods were sometimes questionable. She began making more connections in the larger DC universe, outside of the Batman family and the Joker's network of rogues. She became friends with superheroes like Power Girl, and even went on to gather her very own gang of Harleys, a troupe of mercenaries inspired by her aesthetic. She teamed up with various heroes in Harley's Little Black Book in 2016, and toured the DC Universe unhindered, befriending or bothering Superman, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman, among others. During this time, she became a landlord for her apartment building, the owner of a traveling sideshow, and a member of a roller derby team, and all while remaining a member of the Suicide Squad. In the limited series Poison Ivy, Cycle of Life and Death, 2015, Harley and Ivy officially repaired their fractured relationship. Whoa, wait, what the fuck? So 2 things threw me while reading that description. Other than the whole she can suddenly break the fourth wall thing now. Well, I guess one of the things didn't throw me, I just found it interesting. One thing threw me, and then another thing was just interesting. The interesting thing was, this seems to be the Harley Quinn that everybody really likes. Like the one that came up in like 2013 to 2016, where she's an anti-hero and she's really wacky and she breaks the fourth wall. That seems to be like the mainstream super popular Harley Quinn that people are very familiar with, rather than like the poison ivy toxin super strength no man's land Harley. So it's interesting to see this like hard divide of when she became the character that we all kind of know today. Um, and then I guess one thing that's throwing me, they say that Harley and Ivy officially repaired their fractured relationship. Did they have a fractured relationship in the New 52? Because it seemed like their relationship broke apart in Gotham City Sirens, which was pre New 52. So then Flashpoint happens. So none of that shit happened. Like Gotham City Sirens didn't occur unless it happened in the 5 years. Because that's the thing. They want to say that some things from before Flashpoint still happen. They happen differently, but in like this condensed thing. So I guess sure. That's how she can have beef with Poison Ivy, even though there's no New 52 story, from what we can tell, where she had beef with Poison Ivy. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean beef soup. Beef soup. 1918 plague. Beef soup.
Beef soup. Rebirth, 2016 to present. Harley's status quo was largely unchanged after the events of DC Universe Rebirth number 1, continuing her adventures on Coney Island in Harley Quinn 2016, while serving hard time at Bell Rep Penitentiary and Suicide Squad 2016. How she manages to maintain her independent lifestyle while functioning as a full-time member of the Suicide Squad, however, is anybody's guess. Harley Quinn's never had any interest in making sense, after all, so why start now? Um, so that's like a hyper time thing. Mark Waid would be like, she's somehow doing both because hyper time. It's all mixing together. See, he's like, there's a timeline where she's just on the Suicide Squad, right? And there's a timeline where she's just doing her own stuff. But they both happen because the hyper time, it mixes together, deal with it. So that's Mark Waid's explanation for stuff like that. Team affiliations. She's a member of the Secret Six, or she was, the Suicide Squad, Gotham City Sirens, I guess not anymore because that team's not together, and Gang of Harleys. They don't list her as a member of Birds of Prey, even though that's like a more recent thing. Like I'm pretty sure there's a Birds of Prey graphic novel now where she just is a member to go alongside the Harley Quinn movie. So update the encyclopedia, unless that's not in canon, like unless that graphic novel.
Yeah, but everything's in canon, Jet. Because there is no canon. At the same time, it's meaningless.
You know what, Ryan? You bring up an interesting point. Why is it that the encyclopedia doesn't have entries for all the like alternate universe versions of the characters? Because if you go to like Alan Scott on the DC encyclopedia, they'll be like, and in the New 52, there was Earth 2 Alan Scott. So clearly they still document like other universe versions of people. It's just like they kind of choose when they do and when they don't, I guess. For Alan Scott, I guess it makes more sense because there was a period of time where there wasn't an Earth Zero Alan Scott. So they're like, during that time,
Yeah, but Earth Zero doesn't matter, so why does it matter?
Well, it seems like most of the time they follow Earth Zero's stories.
Because they're dummies. Where's Earth 33?
We're on Earth 33, apparently, somehow. Also known as Prime Earth. Oh, she also appears in Ready Player One.
Well, that's dumb. Everything's dumb in Ready Player One.
I didn't mind the Ready Player One movie. It was okay. I like the Shining part. That was good, in my opinion. Boop boop. What do I want to look up? What do I want to Google? What do I want to goggle? We talked about the Transformers Back to the Future crossover. I was bringing up the idea that My Little Pony could cross over into Back to the Future. Ryan was like, we're not having any of that, so we didn't really talk about it. Oh, did you notice that I played a mech fighting game before the podcast?
I noticed you did something before the podcast.
Okay, so I've started playing this game where you play as like a mech pilot and you fight giant monsters to defend a city. And you have a series of special abilities and moves, and you can upgrade your mech with different modifications. I'm playing through the story. So far, so good. If you guys are interested in checking that out, definitely make sure that you check that out on the channel. Also, while I'm already doing plugs, feel free to check out my comics on Amazon. I've published a couple of digital comics, and right now I'm working on a third one. The first comic is Rift and Tone, issue 1. If you're interested in the stuff that we're talking about like superheroes and alternate universes and multiverse traveling, that's what Rift and Tone is really about. Issue 1 tells the origins of Rift and Tone, two multiverse traveling superheroes, and King X, who is like this interdimensional multiversal villain. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, definitely check that out on Amazon. You can find it by typing Rift and Tone comic, and being like an ampersand instead of the word and. Also, if you guys are more into medieval fantasy, make sure you check out my digital comic Blade of Sparks medieval fantasy adventure comic. It's your age-old story about a knight trying to save a princess from a dragon. It's my first attempt at doing a medieval fantasy comic. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely check that out. And right now I'm working on a Minecraft digital comic. So if you're interested in like seeing how I draw like the Minecraft world, because I don't make everything blocky. I still try to preserve some elements of the Minecraft aesthetic, but I also try to make it my own. If you want to see the kinds of stories that I would tell in the Minecraft world, definitely feel free to check out that comic when it comes out. I don't have a title for it yet, but I have written a complete script, and I've drawn, I think, 5 out of the 8 pages of the comic so far, so I'm almost done. But yeah, that was just a few quick plugs. Ryan, do you have any recommendations of things that the audience should check out?
Yeah, y'all should check out the works of Enrico Malatesta, the anarchist theorist and writer.
Okay. And Ryan, I guess I have the question of what has been your favorite topic of this episode so far and why?
Where you read off Harley Quinn stuff. That was a fun thing to listen to.
No.
Very excited to listen to things on the podcast.
Speaking of the Harley Quinn encyclopedia entry, what are your thoughts on it? Did you learn any like interesting new facts about Harley Quinn that you didn't know about
Mm-hmm.
before?
Yeah.
Okay. They mentioned the Dr. Marcus thing, but then when they went through her like history, they never mention him again. Like he's mentioned in the
Well, that's because he doesn't matter.
apparently not. He's a really weird entry. I also think it's weird that they originally adapted her Mad Love origin, and then later on, we're like, nah, fuck that. I guess I don't know which origin is the Dr. Marcus one. Like when they adapted Mad Love, did they change it and add the Dr. Marcus shit? Um, the new 52 one makes it sound like Harley Quinn just got like super fucked over. Like it sounded very against her will, like the Joker just went after her. Like her origin section seems to tell like a really different story than her storyline section, which also has her origins in it. And I think that's confusing. I'm not sure if two different people wrote the essential storyline section versus the origin section, but they seem not to line up cleanly, I would say. What
That's DC Comics continuity for you.
fair? Uh, Speaking of DC Comics continuity, someone was talking about Marvel. Oh, I know who it was. It was a comic story and podcast episode. They were talking about Marvel continuity versus DC continuity and who has the more messed up continuity. And they essentially said both are really messed up, but for different reasons. Because they're like, DC keeps doing all these events where they try to like fix continuity, but then they also have all these delayed books that kind of mess up like the stories. For example, Three Jokers was something that was set up by Darkside War, and Darkside War happened like many years ago now. Like it was like a New 52 Justice League event. And since Darkside War, we haven't gotten any word about the Three Joker stuff until like I think this year is when Three Jokers finally started rolling out. But they didn't build up to anything. And it seems like the story is much more low key than you would have expected based on like the hype that was kind of built out of the end of Darkside War when they revealed that there were three Jokers. Um, and essentially what they were saying is because you have these big delays like that, where they like set the seeds for something and then you don't see it until way later, it creates some confusing continuity stuff where you're like, okay, where does Three Jokers take place? Because like in Three Jokers, they use an art style that makes it kind of seem like it's a timeless thing. Um, and I don't know how to describe it. I've heard people call it. I think I've heard people call it vintage, but I don't think that's true. Like I don't think that's like the right term for it because I think I looked that up and that meant something else. Um, but essentially,
Like the word vintage or some specific
like
uh
comic book terminology thing, like how I'm not sure if vintage is even like the right word. There's some kind of book format that I've heard people say is like it's when they tell a timeless story that could take place at any point. And then when I looked up the term, it actually was like a publishing format that has to do with like how the book is made. It doesn't have like anything to do with like whether or not it's timeless, but people have like they're trying to use the word differently. And I don't know how to call it. Oh, prestige. It's not vintage, it's prestige is what they say. Um, but anyways, Three Jokers is told in such a way to where you don't know when it occurred. It kind of could occur at any time. Um, but then because it's being released this year, you'd think, well, maybe Three Jokers takes place in the present day. But Alfred, I've heard, is in Three Jokers, and Alfred's dead in the present day. So it's like, well, I guess it can't take place in the present day. So when does it take
present day relative to what?
present day relative to like Earth Zero, like current comics being released, kind of thing?
Like in 2020?
Right.
Like 2020 comics?
Yes. Um, because it could take place right after Dark Side War.
It could take place after they bring Alfred back to life.
So it's like a future thing, like it hasn't happened yet, kind of.
Yeah, like the future memories.
So Ryan on the phone earlier today was trying to make sense of something that happened in a recent Justice League issue, where Cyborg and Starfire were talking about like their history being on the Teen Titans together. But in the New 52, the Teen Titans is like a completely different group of people. And Cyborg, immediately after becoming Cyborg, becomes a member of the Justice League. So as far as we know, there was no time where Cyborg could have like ever been a member of the Teen Titans. And I mentioned to Ryan that they already have started setting a precedent for characters remembering stuff that happened pre-Flashpoint, even though stuff that happened pre-Flashpoint technically never happened due to like time travel bullshit. Um, and I believe that it's like they're remembering the new continuity post Doomsday Clock, I guess is what's happening. But Ryan was like, maybe since they already were talking about how people could remember stuff from before Flashpoint, even though that stuff technically didn't happen, then maybe they're remembering future stuff that will happen at some point, because that makes just about as much sense as what Ryan was talking about on the phone. Which is, it's weird to say it's more convoluted, because it's probably just as convoluted. So, weirdly possible, but I doubt it. Um, I lost my train of thought, but I enjoyed the thing I just said, recapping them on the phone call. So while I'm slightly unsatisfied that I don't remember what I was talking about, I am satisfied that I at the very least finished that thought. Um, Let me see if I can work my way backwards. Ryan, do you remember what I was talking about before I started talking about the phone
The
call?
comic historian thing.
The
But like
comic
how
historian
it
thing,
is.
Three Jokers. Oh, the delays and everything. Yeah. So yeah, we don't know when the Three Jokers takes place. Um, and another big thing, Doomsday Clock. Doomsday Clock, when it was first being released, was said that it was going to take place 1 year in the future, which DC really needs to start
Relative to when?
relative to present day. So at the time,
Present day always changes. So you always have to have a relative to when.
so essentially what they were saying is that the books they were releasing at the time all took place that year, except Doomsday Clock, which takes place the next year in continuity. But the issue was Doomsday Clock got delayed so hard that it took more than a single year for it to come out. So then it's like, so when does it take place then? Because you started having stories that technically should be taking place during Doomsday Clock, but Doomsday Clock was like still happening and they weren't lining up or whatever. People say that at the end of Scott Snyder's Justice League run, where the Justice League quote unquote die, and then they walk through a big door that
The door.
all
The
stories matter,
door.
that essentially by walking through the door that makes all stories matter, it's supposed to make Doomsday Clock fit now. Because it's like all stories happened. We walked through the door, so now even Doomsday Clock happened, even though there's
Remember the door?
up with any
Remember
of
the
this
door?
stuff.
The door.
The
Remember
door.
the door?
The door. Um, but yeah, DC continuity. We always fall back into discussing how crazy DC's continuity is.
It's not crazy.
It's not crazy.
No.
What is it? Convoluted?
Mm-hmm.
Do 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 do. Let's see. Complex and difficult to follow is convoluted. What's crazy mean? Mentally deranged, especially as manifested in a wild or aggressive way. Extremely enthusiastic. Extremely a mentally deranged person.
Lunatics are people who have to do with the moon.
Let's see. I'm aware.
Because the moon makes people crazy.
I've heard that before.
They're moon crazy.
Um, Jumping into a new topic based on that. I remember when I was younger, I found like a Google Scholar article. Also, my brain is like, never mind. I'm not going to jump into it. The reason why I'm hesitant to jump into it is because I think if I was to go to my library on Google Scholar, it would show my email address. I was like, ooh, am I about to like uh, essentially put my email address on blast if I go into my library? I don't know if that's true or not, but I'd rather not risk it. So I guess maybe I can find it without going to Google Scholar. So there was a research paper that was trying to say that like the lunatics thing is like a real thing, that like the moon does affect like how people interact and like mental stability and stuff like that. I don't know if this is the exact article, but the first thing that comes up when you look up lunatic research paper is a Scientific American article. Does this link to like an actual like journal thing?
Scientific American is a journal.
But I mean, like, it didn't take me to like the journal abstract or whatever, like for the thing. It took me to like a blog post kind
Like a
of.
press release.
Right. Um, so I'm like, can I scroll to the bottom and find it? Full Moon, a meta-analysis of lunar lunacy research, which was published in the Psychological Bulletin in March 1985. That's really old. The Moon and Madness Reconsidered.
Not that old.
Uh, well, I mean,
Only the 80s.
it's older than this though, like than the article itself. I didn't expect the first thing for them to cite to be like a much older thing. Let's see. The Moon and Madness Reconsidered, Charles L. Raisin, Haven M. Klein, and Morgan Steckler in the Journal of Affective Disorders. That was published in April 1999. And then another reference is to Pseudoscience and the Paranormal, second edition, Terrence Hines and Prometheus Books, 2003. So let's see. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. So if the lunar lunacy effect, this is me quoting the page now. So if the lunar lunacy effect is merely an astronomical and psychological urban legend, why is it so widespread? There are several probable reasons. Media coverage almost surely plays a role. Scores of Hollywood horror flicks portray full moon nights as peak times of spooky occurrences such as stabbings, shootings, and psychotic behaviors. Perhaps more important, research demonstrates that many people fall prey to a phenomenon that University of Wisconsin-Madison psychologists Lauren and Jean Chapman termed illusory correlation, the perception of an association that does not in fact exist. For example, many people who have joint pain insist that their pain increases during raining weather, although research disconfirms this assertion. Much like the watery mirages we observe on freeways during hot summer days, illusory correlations can fool us into perceiving phenomena in their absence. Illusory correlations result in part from our mind's propensity to attend to and recall most events better than non events. When there is a full moon and something decidedly odd happens, we usually notice it, tell others about it, and remember it. We do so because such co occurrences fit with our preconceptions. Indeed, one study showed that psychiatric nurses who believed in the lunar effect wrote more notes about patients' peculiar behavior than did nurses who did not believe in this effect. In contrast, when there is a full moon and nothing odd happens, this non event quickly fades from our memory. As a result of our selective
Did you watch the moon video I sent you?
I did not watch the moon video you sent me.
Did you watch the moon video I sent you?
Okay.
It's essentially saying, is moon footage cinema? Like the footage that they took on the moon. Like, is that cinema?
Was it considered cinema at any point? Like, is there anyone making the claim that it is cinema?
Yes.
Okay. Define cinema. The art of making motion pictures. Well, that's cinematography. Give me the definition of cinema. A theater where movies are shown for public entertainment. A movie theater, the production of movies as an art or industry. The production of movies as an art or industry.
It's sort of like a term that can be used as like the art form of movies. Like movies as an art form, cinema. As well as also being a word to describe the theaters that the art form was sort of based around.
Well, cinematography seems to be just straight up the art of making motion pictures. Seems like the Google dictionary makes like a differentiation between the two. Well, no, you're right. Because the second definition of cinema is the production of movies as an art or industry. So the second definition of cinema more or less is just the definition of cinematography. They're synonymous in that way. So yeah, you're right. So I guess the question then would be, is the footage of the moon considered a movie then?
Well, it's obviously a movie, but is it cinema? A movie is just any like moving picture thing, you know? Like a movie is just moving pictures. Like Vines are movies.
I mean,
YouTube videos are movies.
it depends on the definition used. So, first definition given by the Google Dictionary: a story or event recorded by a camera as a set of moving images and shown in a theater or on television, a motion picture. So, in that regard, if you go by that first definition, which is very specific, if it's not shown in a theater or on television, then it's not like a movie, which is interesting. Because what about something like a DVD? You know, I guess you watch a DVD on your TV, but you don't have to. What about stuff that you like stream via Netflix? You know, it's an odd definition. The second,
An outdated definition. Well, not even outdated, because movies go back before theaters do. Like watching movies in theaters.
because theaters are like something.
You should watch the Magic Lantern video about like the history of, you know, motion pictures.
Maybe. The second definition given on the
As well as the video about is Vine cinema, which has similar sorts of things, but also goes back to early forms of movies, like the kinetoscope type stuff, where it's movies, but before they had like theaters to show them in, you know, like the little kinetoscope things that Edison had. It's just like a box you look in, where you have motion pictures and things, but they're not like films because they don't even have like film on it yet.
right.
Stuff like that. There's a lot of these like terms that kind of are used synonymously, but probably technically just aren't the same thing. Like movie and like cinema and like film, you know, because we can call like movies films, even though they're not like on film anymore. Stuff like that. And all of which doesn't have to be in a theater anymore, or it really just ever had to be. That was just a popular way of watching movies.
True. The second definition is a movie theater.
There's also a word similar as feature, like a feature film, but just by itself. Like
Understandable. I mean, a feature film sounds like if you were watching
the thing you would put in a movie theater, as opposed to like the kind of short films, which would be like, you know, like before like a Pixar movie. You know, the Pixar movie is like the feature film, but then they have the short films in front of it.
Yeah.
Isn't the feature film.
See, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it sounds like the time when I would probably want to say feature film is if you were watching multiple like films, but one is like the main event kind of thing. You know,
Right.
similar to how you can have like an artist featured on a musical track, but they're not like the main person performing on the track kind of thing. Or if you have like a Batman comic featuring the Flash, he's like the side character.
Well, and that's kind of different because that's like I feel like feature is used differently in those two examples than the feature film.
Elaborate. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Like, because in the feature film thing, it's like the feature film is like the thing that's like the center of attention. Like we're featuring this thing as if it's like the main most important thing. Whereas a lot of those like movie features or like other things are more like cameos, where yeah, they're there, but they're not like the centerpiece of what's happening necessarily, you know?
But the centerpiece is. I kind of see where you're coming from. Like, when something is the feature, it's the main event. But when something is featuring,
Like it sounds like we
a
use
side
feature
thing.
a lot for like things that are like crossovers, but in a different way from the way feature is used as feature films.
Well, it seems like it's being used like in a similar way in both instances because it's trying to differentiate between what is the main thing versus something that's just also there. You know what I mean? So it's like when you say this is the feature film, you're saying this is like the main event. Like this is what you came here to see. All the other stuff, like the trailers or like the like pre-movie show or whatever, that's not the feature film. But then it's almost reversed when you're talking about like Batman featuring the Flash, or like DJ
Right.
Khaled is featured on a Drake song, where it's like the feature is just someone who's also doing stuff in the thing, but they're not like the main artist. But it like the meaning isn't being changed too much; it's just kind of being flipped. You
Mm-hmm.
In the Google dictionary, they define feature as a distinctive attribute or aspect of something. Well, I get that. What's the second one? A newspaper or magazine article or a broadcast program devoted to the treatment of a particular topic, typically at length, like the feature story or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's so specific for both of those. Oh, they have C definitions in media and film. Okay, let me see media before I look at film. So the media one is literally just the newspaper one. Okay, what about the film one? Film. A full-length film intended as the main item in a movie theater program. So yeah, that's consistent with how it's been used, like how we've been using it so far. Um, I really don't like that newspaper or magazine article thing. It's another thing where it's like oddly limited.
It's not limited. It's just a use of the word.
Okay, here we go. We have more definitions to look at. Do, 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 do. Have as a prominent attribute or aspect. Have as an important actor or participant. Be a significant characteristic of or take important part in.
I feel like that bit is usually how like the music, featuring X artist is used, right?
I don't know, because a lot of
Like,
songs,
featuring this like YouTube things, it'll be like some whole like, crossover bit where there'll be like a collab and such, that there's like significant like contribution to like the thing from the other artist or somebody,
I
right?
suppose it varies. Because some collabs will be like, hey guys, today I'm doing a video.
Like in the way that you title something, like you can have like a cameo or like someone show up, but like I guess to an extent that you wouldn't like because you can put like featuring so and so. You don't have to, but like if you want to like emphasize that in the title, that it's like a big old collab thing. But like you can have like a small like cameo that you wouldn't necessarily be like featuring them if it's just like a small cameo.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be as small as just a cameo. Because a cameo is just you show up. You don't even have to do anything
Mm-hmm.
like in a
Right.
cameo. But a lot of collabs that I'll see will be like video essays where like a segment will be taken by like just another person. So it'll be someone who's like, I really know a lot about like filmmaking, but I'm not like a sound design guy. Real quick, I'm gonna like cut over to this other YouTuber
Mm-hmm.
who's all about
Yeah.
sound design, and then he'll do that part, and then we'll jump back. And
Like a mini guest lecture.
right, and I feel like that's what I see a lot of the times when you have like these features or whatever. Um, Sometimes it'll be a thing where it is like very collaborative. You can tell all parties are putting in like equal work. And the main thing that differentiates between like who's the feature and who's the main person will be like who's clearly the host. Like who's going like, hey guys, welcome back to like my channel or whatever, and today we're gonna do da 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 with like the other person. Can sometimes be the only thing that like makes the difference. Um, but I do think it's interesting to think about the different ways that features used. Now that we've talked about a variety of different topics, Ryan, which do you think was like your favorite out of all the
Stop
topics?
asking me that. Quinn.
Ryan's like, I don't want to share that information. Okay, I got an easier question then, Ryan. What's your social security number? There's no opinions or anything.
You think I know my social security number?
Maybe.
Ha. Joke's on you. I don't. I always have to look it up every time I need it, which is infrequent, which is why I haven't memorized it so much.
Understandable. Let's see. It's now 11:12. I successfully.
Joke's on you. It's 11:13 in a minute.
So, last night I successfully was able to like go to bed at a good time and then wake up like super early in the morning, which is what I want to do on the weekends so I can get the most out of my day. So I'm gonna try to do that again. So if it's okay with you, I'm ready to end the podcast. Are you down for that, Ryan?
Watch that moon video.
Oh, if you can shout out the title, you can recommend for the audience to check it out. Or the channel name if you don't know the title.
Okay, here, let me.
I missed the last thing you said. I can't tell if he's currently looking up the moon thing or not.
On my phone. Never mind.
He said never mind. Okay. Is there anything that you would like to say before we end the podcast, Ryan? Can't tell if he's thinking of a thing now or not. Well, I'll start the intro. He'll interrupt me if he has a thing. Anyways, thank you all for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure to smash that like button, favorite, comment, subscribe, and ding, 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 ring the notification bell to be notified whenever we do these videos. Make sure you checked out, oh, the call failed. Womp, 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 womp. Let me redial. See if the call fail was unintentional. Welcome back. Was there anything that you wanted to say before we ended the podcast?
No.
No? Okay. Well, I guess I'll jump back into the outro then. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure to smash that like button, favorite, comment, subscribe, and ding, ding, ring the notification bell to be notified whenever we do these videos. It's your friend, your boy, Jet Black, the one and only, here with
Robin's dick.
Of unconfirmed shape or size. Logging out. Peace, guys. Chicken and guy.